Hello there, today we'll be taking you through the pitch deck of Down Under. This pitch deck aims to explain the core game concept, as well as take you through our plans for the project, as well as how we intend to spend our time and money, as well as make a return on our investment. Let's start by talking a bit about who we are. My name is Duncan Cummings. I'm the founder and lead designer at Non-Applicable Games. We are a Mansfield-based company with a single full-time employee that mostly relies on contractors to fulfill certain roles within the team. We're a brand that produces games which are genre-bending with a unique flavor that you won't find anywhere else. RPG, platformer, action, the genre of our games is not applicable. On top of being a studio that produces standout games for the current market, we're also one that is well established. In February of last year, we released our first game, Ashton Uprising. It was a simple 2D hack and slash that was well received by those who played it, and allowed us to build a community of loyal fans, which gives us a strong core audience with which to market our next game. But for that, we'll need your help. Down Under is a JRPG crossed with a Metroidvania. You take control of Mother and Father Sam and Becca, who one night see their children kidnapped and taken deep under the earth by monsters. The gameplay will see you descending into this sprawling, interconnected world and taking part in turn-based combat as you progress further. Combat can be resolved violently, or you can attempt to befriend the enemy in order to resolve it more peacefully. These core mechanics are capped off with a heavy character-driven narrative that explores the levels of desperation our two protagonists are willing to sink to in order to achieve their goal. Ideally, we want this game to be 6 to 8 hours long, and while it deals with mature subjects, we want to make sure this story is still palatable for younger audiences. So what is your goal then? Well, your children are being held in the castle of the ferocious king of the monsters, Rex. The player isn't explicitly told how to infiltrate the castle, and the challenge of the game comes from attempting to find their own way in. A core philosophy of the game's design comes from empowering the player's ability to solve problems in their own way, and so there's a number of ways that you can infiltrate the castle. You could execute a full frontal assault, you could attempt to sneak in and avoid detection, or you could even band together the friends you made along the way and overthrow Rex. More potential solutions are planned along the way with more specific requirements that need to be fulfilled in order to execute them. More routes will be planned with more specific requirements. The core gameplay of Down Under is structured like a typical Metroidvania. You go between the hub area of the human worlds, of the surface, and the world of the monsters by jumping into curious holes you find in the ground. Alongside the way, you solve environmental puzzles, interact with NPCs, and progress deeper into the sprawling labyrinth that is the world of the monsters. It's worth noting here the art direction we'll be using for this game. As you may have noticed, the game will be using mostly 2D pixel art with a strongly defined color palette. In the human world, everything will be bright, saturated, with every sprite colored in a way that makes sense for the scene. And in the world of the monsters, all the environments and characters have this neon look of being mostly dark, black shapes with a few contrasting accent colors to make things look more alien. Combat in Down Under will take the form of timing-based minigames tacked onto a typical turn-based combat system, similar to the Mario RPGs. Enemies will appear physically in the world instead of appearing randomly as you walk around, and during an enemy encounter, the camera shifts to side-on perspective. From there, you are able to interact with monsters in order to pacify them, alternatively try to defeat them. The timing-based minigames are used to determine the strength of your attacks, as well as if you are able to successfully evade the enemy's attack. You can either resolve combat peacefully by interacting with monsters in a way that convinces them to stop fighting, or you can kill the enemy. Killing monsters will cause them to drop their souls, which you can equip to your characters like they were as weapons and armor. In the case of particularly strong monsters, you'll be able to assume their form. Monster forms give you new abilities that you can use in and out of combat, effectively giving you characters a new class. The unique selling points of this game is that its non-linear design allows for players to find their own path of progression. This comes with, alongside, a heavy emphasis on writing memorable characters which will be brought to life with full voice acting. On the subject of characters, seen here is some concept art for our protagonists alongside with their monster forms. As previously stated, they are parents. We wanted to create a distinct sort of hero for this game which will allow us to explore different and interesting themes, and we hope Sam and Becca will be compelling enough characters to make all these themes really come to life in a way that is palatable for all ages. Strong characters give games their identity. That's another big selling point of Down Under. Across the course of the game, you'll encounter all sorts of friends and foes that create memorable experiences for the player. We aim to achieve this through well-thought-out character writing and art direction. And if those unique selling points weren't enough, best of all, there are currently no games on the current market which are remotely similar to ours. The way we have decided to mix genres in Down Under is completely unique and will help the game stand out. It's completely in a league of its own, and as evidenced by the Steam search. That's not to say, however, that we are completely naive and think the game is unique and will sell its own merit alone. We are aware of potential competition. Titles like Deltarune, Cassette Beasts, and the most recent Mario & Luigi game come to mind when thinking of games that might be competing for the target audience's attention. While it's hard to accurately gauge how these games perform financially, using the box liter method, we are able to estimate the amount of revenue that these games have grossed. We can expect Down Under's revenue to be in the bounds of 1.5 million based on how well these kinds of games generally perform. On the subject of target audience, we want Down Under to target a casual audience of ages 12 up who may not be a fan of traditional RPGs and is looking for a more unique experience that doesn't fall in line with the tropes of the genre. We'd also expect our target audience to prefer playing games on the go through their Steam Deck or Nintendo Switch, so we intend to structure the game in a way that makes it easy to pick up and put down on a dime. So with that all in mind, we can now talk about what support we would need to make this project a reality. This will include funding, professional Q&A, alongside localization and console porting to bring the game to a wider audience. We are asking for a total of £400,000 in funding for the entire 30-month development cycle, which has been rounded up to account for potential overhead. The grand majority of this funding will be spent on hiring staff to fill roles in our teams. As previously stated, we are currently a small company that relies on contractors to complete our projects. So we would like to prioritize bringing those contractors on full-time, remotely, so that they can dedicate themselves to finishing the project. A breakdown of staff salaries for the project can be found on the right. The only exception here will be the voice actors, which will be contracted for several sessions as opposed to the whole development period. But you may be wondering, what about hardware? What about software? Well, we are pleased to say that the overhead will account for any hardware upgrades we may need to make to any of our team's systems, and also our game engine and art tools are all free and open source, meaning we do not have to pay for any of it. As for the production schedule, we learned a lot about production planning from our previous title and the importance of early access in game development. For that reason, we want to follow a development cycle of 30 to 34 months, which makes heavy use of early access for gathering feedback and shaping development of Down Under further. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, my email is attached to this slide.